Right, two things I said I was never going to do when starting doing retro 8-bit computing. One was I was never going to do floppy disks. I was going to use MMC flashcard data. Yeah, that lasted long, didn't it? Both types as well. And the second thing I said I was never going to do was cathode ray tube monitors. Yeah, and that lasted as well. If you ever went to school in the UK in the 80s or even the 90s, these things will be very familiar to you. This is a CUB monitor which accompanied the BBC Micro, Acorn BBC Micro computers from the right from the 1980s and 1990s. My school were full of these things, even into the 2000s actually. Manufactured by, I think it's Microvitec or Microvitec. I've no idea how you actually pronounce it, and I'm too tired. Just going to look around the back a minute. So, yeah, there you go. You can make sense of that. Microvitec. Anyway, yeah. So these are CUB cathode ray tube monitors. Very industrial design. Full metal chassis and body. Sort of utilitarian, so designed for industry, but mainly the classroom. So you can imagine these taking a bit of a whack in schools, etc. I got this one tapped up to a Acorn 1983 Acorn Electron. The monitor itself must date from about 1981, maybe a little bit later. I didn't actually have one of these. I did an interview for iconbar.com, which is an Acorn user website, and one of the questions, because it's December at the moment, December 2016, one of the questions for this was what would you like Santa to get you? And I sort of jokingly said I quite like a metal chassis CUB monitor, because I haven't got one. It's the one sort of last bit of iconic BBC Micro kit I haven't got as part of my collection. And someone actually just randomly got in contact with me from Manchester, of all places, and said, would you like one? I said, well, for free? Yeah, I could have it for free. So I was like, yeah, so I went and got it. A few issues with it. It wasn't actually a BBC Micro monitor. Weird or not, it was actually set up for early PCs, in particular the RM Nimbus, which was a sort of IBM clone machine made sort of around the same time in the early 80s for the UK schools market, for those who didn't go with BBC Micro. That basically meant it didn't have the correct pin connector on the back, and also had a daughter board inside. So I'll just take the connector out. This cable, by the way, is original 80s. It's horrendously shot. Need to get that replaced. Yeah. So basically, I've replaced that DIN connector. It had a 7-pin DIN connector, not a 6-pin DIN, which was needed. So it's one of the little jobs I've done. Yeah, this thing hadn't run, because it didn't work with a BBC Micro originally. This thing hadn't run for, oh god, best part of maybe 20 years, possibly. I think it was acquired by the previous owner in sort of the late 90s, and they never got it to, something happened, they never got it to work. I have got it to work, but that has led to a few more problems, which we'll go over shortly. So it's getting there, but yeah, I just hate CRT monitors. I have a few now, also Acorn or CUB based monitors. They look the part. They weren't. It's nice if you've got the original BBC Micro hardware. That's actually a later BBC Master. It's nice to have the CUB monitors for them, but it's much practical to be able to run off flat screen HD displays. Just makes a lot more sense. But yeah, and I'm waffling now, so we'll take the case off this, and I'll show you the insides and what the issues actually are with this. Right then, this is the monitor with the sort of top end of the body removed. As I said, utilitarian design on these, so it's really easy to actually get into them. As I said, these are sort of British build. Well, I say British build monitors. You only really saw them in sort of UK domestic market. No doubt someone will comment and say, "Oh no, we had them in Europe or whatever," and I'm sure you did. But I do believe these were kind of very much a British design monitor. I say British build, they're actually full of mostly Japanese components. We get the label on that on the tube. See, it's a Mitsubishi picture tube, so Japanese tube, Japanese bits, etc. So this monitor, a few problems. When I got it, it obviously wasn't compatible with the BBC Micro, so I had to rewire, put a new 6-pin DIN connector in. This is the back plate. There's the screwdriver, point to that. So there's the get my finger out of the way. There's the back of the DIN connector, and then wired through to the RGB video in, which is here. And for that, I've used GPIO connectors from sort of Raspberry Pi or any kind of breakout board. Eventually, these things just click together, and I can literally just solder the pins straight on, which is very useful, very quick, easy, and just tap those straight into the pins. Basically what you've got is red, green, blue signal, red, green, blue cable, ground is black, and then you have, which way around is that? I can't remember, which is good. White, I believe, is the 5 volts, and yellow is sync, if memory serves me right. Yes, I think that's the correct way around. I'll have to check that. I'm tired, that's my excuse. So that actually does work. That then allows the monitor to understand the TTL RGB signal. It's not an analog signal. This monitor was actually set up for analog, or I say set up, it was set up rather badly. There's some jumpers, just you see those there. There's some jumpers there that you have to set. I'm actually going to zoom in on that. Probably not. Oh no, we can. There we go. So these jumpers here, these are now set up for the TTL signal, and then there's this IC here that actually does the decoding and displays a digital 8 colour signal for the BBC Micro. Well, it would, apart from the fact there's no red signal at all, and it's not the tube, because I've adjusted the gain for the red gun, which is one of these pots in the back of this neck board on the cathode ray, and it does do a red raster quite happily. So red, green and blue on the gun is fine. There's just no signal, and it's not the cables, because I've switched the red over to the green or the blue signal, and you get the red information. So there's a problem with the logic on the TTL, which could be a broken track, a dud IC, IC101, which is the, where we are, that one there, could be a problem. Or it could be an issue with transistors on the circuit, on the logic circuit. Where are the transistors on this? So I think we could have an issue with things like that there. TR201 could be a problem. So something's a bit shot somewhere, which is a shame. Or could be dry joint, pressure on this neck board that gets a lot of heat. Possibly. So that's one issue got to solve. The second issue, it's into focus, there we are, is arcing from this anode cap for the, what I think is the tribulator. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I'm learning this one. Yeah, so that has been sparking. Now I've taken the voltage out the tube itself, because these things hold a bit of a whack, which is why I hate the Notch 2000 volts. They can hold even when powered down. But we took this cap off, I've given it a clean, and then it still sparked. I was like, ugh. Really hoping this will actually wasn't out. But it's still holding a focus, because the anode here connects down And there we are, that's the tripulator for the focus. Apologies if it's not called a tripulator, but that's what I think it's called. And it was fine. Even when it's sparking, the picture was absolutely fine on the tube, which was really annoying. So I wasn't sure what it was, and then someone on one of the Acorn Facebook groups suggested, I showed them a photograph like this, top down, and they actually said that it'd been the voltage had been turned up. I was like, what? And they said, yeah. If I find it, there's a little pot there. It's a black thing. Try and get focus on this then if we can. Come on, there we go. Yeah, and that had been turned up. And they said, don't run these things at full voltage. Well, I hadn't turned it up. I get the feeling that the previous owner of this had possibly the owner before, or wherever it's come from, somebody has gone with a screwdriver and basically twisted all of these pots. So the picture's out of sync, all sorts, and it's quite possible they've turned the voltage up on this. So what I've done is I've actually turned it down a little bit. I haven't actually put power for the monitor yet. That's what we're going to do next, and hopefully that might actually stop it from sparking its head off. But yeah, so let's power up and see what happens. Okay, so the Acorn Electron is now powered up and the monitor is now plugged in, and we'll turn it on and see what happens. I put the connector back in right away, so let's turn this on and see what happens. Lovely sound. So this is now running with the voltage turned down to the tube. And we've got a picture on the screen. And it's just seeing how stable this is going to be. See, this is really annoying because it's actually a really good picture, but that's meant to be white text and it won't actually be white. It looks white on the screen, but it's actually cyan, or cyan. Again, however you pronounce that. I'm just too tired to care at the moment, but let's see how quiet this is going to be. Let it warm up a little bit. You get a very sort of high-pitched squeal that as you get older you generally can't hear, but I can still just about hear it. Not quite 30 years old yet, but I can still hear quite a squeal coming off that. It's quite funny actually, when we do take these kappa ray tubes into schools, deal with sort of kids, young people, they, especially this generation, are just not used to kappa ray tube monitors, and they complain about this high-pitched squeal that they just can't stand, and you got teachers going, well, you know. Actually, now I've turned the voltage on that down, that's actually not sparking anymore, which is interesting, isn't it? That seems quite stable. This hasn't been on for a few days either, so this is running completely from cold. It's been off for about a week. Well, that's promising. As I said, I'm running with an Acorn Electron, which is a cut down BBC Micro effectively, just because the unit's quite a small, convenient unit, and still does the same video outs and colour outs, so it's good enough and valid for testing. It's effectively a BBC Micro cable attached to it. Yeah, the picture's really good. The picture's actually completely out of whack, to be honest with you. It needs sit down. It needs setting up correctly, because it's just like not set up at all at the moment. So the picture's doesn't actually raster across the whole screen at the moment, and it's sort of long text is long at the top and then really thin at the bottom, and you name it, we've got it going on at the moment. So it still needs some tweaks and adjustments, but ooh, did you see that? Something just went pop quite badly then. What on earth was that? I was about to say I'd had this monitor not having issues with the picture, and something just literally went pop and interfered with the screen. Yeah. This is the sort of sum of my technical knowledge with these things at the moment, other than don't touch that when it's on. I'm hoping above hope it doesn't need a new tribulator, suction cuppy, anode, top end, whatever that is. Really am hoping it doesn't need that. But something just went pop. I'm really hoping it's just a case it needs a little bit of running just to bring itself up to temperature. But that was a bit worrying. Don't know what that was. Anyway, yes. We can test the colour output again. I've put the machine into mode 2, which you can do shorthand on this, but I'm just going to mode 2 on there. And basically, if we type colour 1, that should be red. And as you can see, you don't get any text of any kind, which means that there isn't a red signal coming off this monitor, which is extremely annoying, to say the least. I think the thing it needs to do now is to get a solid, well, what it will think is a solid white screen, which means change the background of the RGB signal to white, and get a multimeter on the jumpers just to see if there's any signal coming on the red channel, trying to identify what the fault is of this. Is it a broken circuit? Well, it is obviously a broken circuit, but is it a joy joint broken track, or is it a transistor or logic issue with the IC? Yeah, that little pop there was a little concerning, but it's still relatively good sharp picture for the age. Okay, let's start test and see what happens. Okay, what I've just done, just to prove it wasn't the computer, the cable, or the incoming red signal, because I used GPIO jumpers from Raspberry Pi for my connections, I disconnected green and I disconnected red, and I basically connected, you can see there, probably can't actually, red, there we go, red, I've connected the red input signal to the green feed. And that basically means anything that's meant to be red will be displayed by the green gun on the CRT. Now, as you can see here, we can now see the text that I was typing in red appearing as green. So we definitely now know it is some kind of logic fault somewhere on the actual CRT itself. So now it's to get a multimeter out and actually see what's happening, put this back to how it's meant to be, red, green, blue, get a multimeter out and then start doing some checks just to have a probe around and see what's going on. Okay, this monitor's been running for about half an hour now. As you can see, I've set it to what's meant to be a solid white background, which should test all three tubes to the maximum. There's some green text still on there, but there you go. As you can see, it's warmed up now. Hasn't done anything funny again. It's been relatively quiet, which is good. I'll show you how I'm going to do the test. Excuse me, that's my stomach rumbling. So I've got my multimeter set here. There we go. And I've got the ground is attached via a crocodile or alligator clip to the earth on the chassis. And what we're going to do is with the red, I'm going to very carefully just probe. See there, I'm just going to probe those to see if we get a reading. So we'll try blue and green first. So just tap that there. Okay, that's blue, and that's red. And as you can see, we're barely registering with red. compare that to the other two. Yeah. Now that, I begin to think, is a transistor issue, not a chip logic issue. It might be that solder there, which actually looks like it may actually not be detached properly. I'm going to investigate that transistor for a minute, see what happens. Okay, yeah, after that test I'm pretty certain it's a logic fault. Pointing at totally the wrong thing before. I've gone and checked what the hell I'm talking about. I believe it's a transistor fault, and on the red circuit it's TR103, which is, zoom in, which I don't know if I can point to this without shorting anything else, is that guy right there. Point at that. I reckon that's faulty. That's probably what's caused it. Or it's that chip. But I don't know, it just doesn't sit right. I think if the IC was out, it would have taken everything with it. So I think it's definitely a transistor. But yeah, will get replaced. And hopefully that'll solve it. So it doesn't look like it's empty to the neck board at all, because we've got low power on the jumper down there. So there we go, that'll be a project for another day, probably after Christmas now. And hopefully we can get this CUB monitor back up to full health, full strength again. It'd be nice to get it out there on the exhibition circuit. Okay, well thank you for watching, and I'll update on what happens.